So welcome everyone to the Parks and Recreation Advisory Board meeting for April 1st, 2013. Looks like we've got a lot of folks here, so just a couple of housekeeping things. If we do have comments as we're going through, if you would just stand up and tell us who you are, and then you go into your comments. At least we'll have an idea of what your name is. So we'll go ahead and get started. Looks like first up on the agenda is the Arkansas Recreation Parks Association Awards.
Yes.
I think Chase is going to cover that.
Yes.
We've got two different awards, our ongoing award series. You know, we're going to kick off each meeting.
All right.
The first one, we recently had the Arkansas Recreation and Park Association's annual conference, and we were fortunate enough to have the winner of the Individual Volunteer of the Year for the entire state of Arkansas, and also the Group Volunteer for the state of Arkansas. So I'm going to read a little bit so I don't forget anything, because there's a lot of facts and figures I want to make sure I get in about. But the winner of the individual award was Mr. Dave Bowman, who's sitting right over here. And Dave's played a vital role in the Trail Trekker program. He's been around since we started in 2008. He's logged over 1,780 hours riding on the trails, and about another 57 volunteer hours to presentations that he's done on behalf of Trail Trekkers. He's appeared at over 150 different locations representing Trail Trekkers. Has also appeared on multiple local TV stations. You've probably seen him different times. On the Mayor's Corner out here, sometimes in City Hall on the TV there, as well as almost all the local stations. I think at one time or another have had a piece with Dave. He's logged an astonishing 7,787 miles on the trails. Wow. He's becoming a trail trekker. He's also been a great leader for us in helping to recruit and train new volunteers. So he attends all of our meetings. He assists us with the presentation, sometimes leads the presentation whenever we're introducing new people to the Trail Trekker program. He also has set up at different times on the trail and helped give out information about the trail and recruit people there as well. He can often be seen on his, what's the proper term for your bike?
Old Blue.
Old Blue. But he's got a signature horn and a recumbent bike. I think that's what they're called, aren't they? So Dave is well known and well recognized out on the trail, and want to invite him up at this time. He actually already has the award. He attended the Parks conference with us to accept the award, but he can show everybody the award, and just wanted to thank you for all that you do.
Thank you.
Appreciate you, Dave.
Brought my own cheering section here. However, yeah, this is a neat deal. I've talked to people quite a few times and told them that I was a volunteer, and but really they did pay me, because each year I get a free meal. And this year they doubled my pay because of the awards. I got 2 free meals. But I would just like to say that this is just simply a wonderful thing that we're doing with the trail system and part of the Parks and Rec system. I have met people from every continent except Antarctica out there. I've met lots of critters. You get to know the people out there. You get to know the dogs, the cats, the occasionally black and yellow garden spider, a deer or 2, snakes on occasion. But you really get to meet people and be out there, and that's what's coming for the future. And that's with the new trail coming up as far as from here up to Bella Vista. I'm sitting in on those meetings as well, and we're making significant progress on that. Just want to say we want to keep this going. If you know of anybody that would like to volunteer to be working with us as far as a trail trekker, please have them contact me. Or I'll deputize all of you here. If you know of a group that would like to learn more about it, you know, let me know. I'm pretty easy to find that way, and I'll be glad to do anything I can to help out. I see people out there getting better, feeling better, looking better. It's healthy and it's fun. It takes the support of a group like this, and I really appreciate what you guys do, to say the least. So, anyhow, thank you very much, and if I can help any questions at all, I'd be glad to do that. And I appreciate the second meal this year, so that's a good thing. Anything at all?
Great job.
Thank you, Dave.
Thank you.
All right, and for our second award, this is for the Group Volunteer of the Year, and this went to the Southeast Fayetteville Community Center Board. And for those of you who aren't familiar, that's the board that works with the Yvonne Richardson Community Center, which Parks helps run that center. So, and this board, here to represent this board is Ms. Nancy Allen, who's here on behalf of the board. She's the board president, and I can't think of a better person to be here on behalf of that board. She has contributed personally hundreds of hours literally to the cause of the center, and has been on the board 3 years now? 5? Has it been that long? Wow. Time flies.
Yes.
So Nancy's been on 5 and been president for probably 3 of those, I guess. Is that probably what I'm thinking of? So I don't know that she ever actually volunteered to be president. She just sort of became president, I think, at some point. But yeah. They provide they're the primary source of funding for the Yvonne Richardson Community Center. We provide free programming for primarily low-income children in Southeast Fayetteville. The program is open to anyone, but our primary group that we serve are those children. And so the board typically does fundraisers each year to help us fund all the activities that we provide for the children. We do a spring break camp, a summer fun for kids 8-week program. It's an all-day program where they do activities, meals. And so the board has played a vital role in that. And really last year was kind of a breakthrough year for the board in that we put on the first, or they mostly, I don't want to take credit for it, they put on a banquet that was absolutely fantastic, especially for our first time. We had it at the town center. Coach Mike Anderson was the guest speaker. Ended up raising about $20,000 through that banquet that helps fund the programs for those kids. And Nancy, I think leading up to the board in about a 2-week period, I think worked over 100 hours just trying to get everything ready for the activity. So Nancy, you can come on up here. So.
Well, I didn't bring my own hooters, so I'm glad that you yelled a little bit for me. Thank you. I want to thank you so much for nominating us. On behalf of the board, I'm absolutely delighted. I think that better things are coming, that the board is growing, the center is growing, good things are happening. These are kids that might slip through the cracks, and we're trying to keep that from happening. It's a real special place. We're already gearing up to try to figure out what we can do to at least match what we did this last year, and I'm very appreciative. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Nancy.
And the award is already taken.
Okay, next up we need to go ahead and approve the meeting minutes from our last meeting, March 4th. Did anybody have any additions, deletions, changes?
I move we accept the minutes.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to accept the approval of the meeting minutes from March 4th. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say no. All right, they're approved.
Can I ask who motion and second, please? Motion.
Second.
Okay, number 4 on the agenda is parkland dedication. Carol, I guess you've got a presentation on a
Yes.
development for us.
Okay, this is Legacy 5, and Jeff Bates is here with Bates and Associates. He represents the developer. This development is in southwest Fayetteville. This is Weddington, and this is Double Springs Road. And we're just at the edge of the city limits, and you'll see it better on the aerial picture. But this is the development area. This is the existing Harmony Point Park, which is a neighborhood park that was built when Legacy Point was developed. And then this is Bundrick Park, which is also a small park. This is Bryce Davis, the West Side Community Park. Okay. Let's see, this development has proposed 106 single family. This is the site plan layout of how those will fit in there. And here is the aerial. And again, this just shows how close it is to the southwest city limit line there. But the developer is asking to pay money in lieu, which would result in $97,520 for the southwest park quadrant. The land dedication requirement is 2.44 acres. The whole development is about 47 acres. And they're requesting money in lieu because of the existing parks in that area, mainly Harmony Point Park.
And staff's recommendation on this is
Money in lieu.
money in lieu. We feel like we've got what we need in that area. Anything that's lacking? Okay. And I assume we have Boys and Girls Club just to the east of there as well?
Yeah, let's see, it's,
That's-
yeah, you can't see it on
Yeah.
this, but let's see if I can.
Okay.
Yeah, Boys and Girls Club is right there. But no
Any,
Clark Park.
any questions? Thoughts?
Mr. Bates is here, if you have any questions about the development.
Was this a pre-existing plan? Is this something you guys have had on hold for a while?
Yes.
Okay.
I make a motion to accept money in lieu.
Second?
I have a motion and a second to accept money in lieu of land for Legacy 5 development. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say no. There we have it. Thanks for coming.
Thanks.
Okay. Number 5, Botanical Garden Society of the Ozarks. Walt, I believe you're here. See you out there.
I believe I am.
Come on up.
I think you all have received the annual report. It's a one-page item, and you've got the map and all that. I'll follow Chase's lead and come up here. We're going to be looking at these two documents, but let me first start with filling you in on what you've already read. I'll just highlight a few points. Got a few folks here this evening from the board, including City Council Representative Joyce, and would the folks who are Botanical Garden Board members stand up and introduce yourselves?
Kathy Bass, Chris Bell, Linda McMath, Martha McBride. I'm Joyce Mendenhall.
All right, we also have our Executive Director, Ron Cox. What I'd like to point out to you all is three things, and I'll summarize one page in 3 points. Last year, the Botanical Garden brought 76,000 people to the garden. Many people underestimate the impact the garden has. 76,000 people came to the garden, of which 10,000 of those were school children, 3rd and 5th graders from the school districts in our 3-county service area. And those kids came, and some of them in part because the program for Springdale cannot currently be met by the aquatic center, so we are taking their overflow, and their overflow is now roughly the same as they teach there. And that's one of the reasons we'll be talking to you this evening about we're moving forward quickly on an educational center, because right now we're pretty much out of space. Number 2, in addition to those 76,000, working with the Chamber of Commerce, who does the economic development for the city, they've estimated that each year the Botanical Garden has an economic impact in the city of Fayetteville of almost $3.2 million. And we don't believe that that is small potatoes. We believe that's pretty significant, and that will continue to grow. The third thing is we've been talking so far this evening about the trail program. What does the garden have to do with the trail program? The first point I would make is we're a very critical restroom on the trail. We average, again I say we average 100 people using our restroom. I was meeting with 2 new board members the other day, and they were just overwhelmed at the number of people who came to the garden. I said, no, they're coming to the restroom. They're folks who have been out on the trail. That is a contribution that the Botanical Garden is making to the city of about $8,700 a year, because we've got to pay to clean up the restroom, we've got to put out toilet paper and tissue and all that sort of thing. And so that is one contribution that we have made. The other thing that we have done is when Mayor Jordan and Don Marr came to the garden early on, They asked us for access for the rest of the Fayetteville, Lake Fayetteville Trail, which would go through our leasehold. And in 2009, we agreed to allow them to pass through what amounts to about 5.8 acres. So we have been a good neighbor. That's pretty much, you've already read this, so I'm not going to go over that. But the garden has finished its 5th year. We are economically viable, we're involved in the community, and we're the best place in Northwest Arkansas to get married. So, any questions that you have about the annual report and what the garden is doing now? Okay, let me briefly talk to you about the plan we're bringing to you so that we can start the process of getting approval. We'll start with you. The staff is working on this, and we'll go from your approval to the city council.
So I got a question. This is our annual report.
That is. We've been asked to keep it short and to the point, so it's on one page and bullet points.
So that's considered the financial audit.
No, we provide the financial audit at our 990 to Connie Edmondson, along with a book. What we're trying to do is, Botanical Garden, as you know it now, is this small area in white over there, roughly 9 acres that's been developed. Dr. Totemeyer, when he developed the plan, called that the demonstration garden, and that was to educate people in Northwest Arkansas as to what a botanical garden really was, because when we started this 18 years ago, no one had ever built a botanical garden in Arkansas, and not a lot of people had experience with it. So, what we have, and that's the purpose of the botanical garden, we are a demonstration garden. By that I mean we've got 9 demonstration gardens and a butterfly house. Each of those demonstrates plants that will do well in Northwest Arkansas, whether they're native or natural, or whether they're plants that will grow here well. We also demonstrate watering and mulching techniques, recycling techniques, composting techniques that people in Northwest Arkansas can use. So all in one place, anyone, any child, any family can come to the garden and learn what sorts of things will work in Northwest Arkansas. The butterfly house is particularly important, and if you have an opportunity later on in May, we will have 5 days of butterfly days, because one day is no longer enough for all the school children to attend. But the butterfly house and the gardens that surround it demonstrate the butterflies that are indigenous to Northwest Arkansas and the host plants that they need to survive. And the hope in that is that the butterfly house will teach each of us how to plant butterfly gardens in our own backyards and have a place for our butterflies to feed, because much of their natural habitat that they've had for years and years is being developed into housing spaces. Right? So we're trying to educate folks as to alternatives. One of the other things that we'll be doing this summer is, whether you believe it or not, the climate is changing. And we will be helping to instruct folks as how to adapt your yards and your plantings to climate change. And that goes with our basic education program. So that is what we have. That's what we've been building over the last 5 years at a cost of about $5 million. 5.5 is probably a better figure. What we're bringing to you is a long-term development plan that has been suggested to us in its structure by the planning and zoning folks. When we originally came back in 2005, we had a master plan by a group named Portico that was very thoughtfully drawn in and had all kinds of details to it. But as history has shown, we have not used that plan and it didn't fit the topography that we have, because when it was developed, no one had ever built a botanical garden. The second time I've said that. What we found was that the Portico people, who are from California, perfectly good planners, didn't use the land, the topography, to its best advantage. So what we have been doing with Ron's help and with Gerald Klingeman is, since we are on the land on a daily basis, we're looking at how to best use it. And the difference between this plan and what was presented in, I guess it was 1998 originally, is that we have moved around those things which make sense to put them where they would work. For example, in the original plan, the amphitheater was over here, adjacent to the rest of the botanical garden, which is flat ground and doesn't fit an amphitheater. An amphitheater is usually in a dish or a bowl, okay? So we move things around. Also, we learned, Connie brought John Beneke from Arkansas Parks and Tourism, who is also our link with the National Park Service, and he gave us some suggestions about parking and infrastructure. And as a result of that, our committee that has been working on this plan, starting with the executive committee and the board for about the past year, has moved some things around. This, and just without giving you, I'm not going to tell you how to build a watch, I'll just tell you what time it is here. The numbers represent the alphabetical order in which the board has put the build-out sequence. To build all this, we estimate $60 million is what we're going to have to raise. And so what we're looking at is the first area that we will develop is the education center, because that's what we need. And that could be a $5 to $6 million facility for which we will raise the money. There are areas that are already developed or in development. K here is Hilton Creek. When we first moved in, it was a trash-filled, nasty place. We have done 2 years' worth of studies on that, and we're developing it and helping to retain the stream side in compliance with the ordinance, and we're working to make sure that it does not take water into Lake Fayetteville that is not in compliance with the Illinois River Watershed Plan. Okay. So we've been working with a number of folks there. G is already there. If you've been out to see the tent, the farmers market is a feature of the botanical garden, and they are out there Wednesday nights, Saturdays, and Sundays. The H, which is the Klingeman Arboretum, is being developed right now, and as I said in my annual report, Gerald Klingeman is planting 174 trees this year.
In that area.
Think about this, 174 10 caliber trees are being put into the botanical garden at this point, following the plans that we're bringing to you tonight. So we've got, this is our priority. The botanical, or the Arboretum is in process. We're currently working with Byron Humphreys in relocating the entrance to the meadow side of the botanical garden, because as I'm sure you already know, when Route 265 is developed into a divided highway, the traffic light in the entrance will be adjacent to where we currently are, but our future major entrance will be down here. Okay. What is important for you to consider is, you will see each of these and they explain themselves, but I go into some detail here. A1 and A are our two educational centers. What we want to do is, down here, there's a cove near here, there are two creeks that come in, and there has to be a place over time that when we send children, they will be able to see the natural forest that is already there in unchanged nature. My point to you is, most people, when they think of developing the botanical garden, think we're going to build everything in the meadow that you see there now. This right here, and I'll go over to this design, This is a schematic. This is not a replacement for the master plan. That's how we're going to build it out. This is merely to show you from a satellite picture how these items will fit across our leasehold. All right? This is your current garden. This is if you're on the new trail, the new Lake Fayetteville Trail, where you see the sign, "Welcome to the Botanical Garden." That will be right about down here. All right. So what we're looking at is using the land to its best use, and our architect, David McKee, who is the one who designed the butterfly house that we already have there, he has suggested that the arboretum will be here, the educational center will be there, and based upon what John Beneke suggested to us, we're clustering the other buildings closer to each other, so we only have to have one parking lot, one set of infrastructure coming in to serve that area, which is a great piece of advice both from John and from the architect, because instead of having to run sewer and other utilities to different buildings separated, they'll be concentrated in an area. What this does is it creates a parking lot. This is 265. The entrance will be down here, and the folks will come into the garden, and the parking lot will be more a parking lot like the ones you see up at Crystal Bridges. It won't be, and I don't mean this to be pejorative, it won't be a Walmart parking lot with a vast expanse of macadam. It will be the road and pull-offs into parking, so that there will be trees and shade throughout this. The whole parking lot will be accessible to the general public who is using the trail. The fence for the garden and the security for the garden will be behind the fence, behind the parking lot. All right. So what we're looking at here is what is currently the open field will become an arboretum. Trees, plants, shrubs, bushes that will indicate what is either stock that is indigenous to Northwest Arkansas, or plants that are non-invasive and are good for the environment in Northwest Arkansas. It goes all the way over to here, which is where the natural hollow is, where we're looking at putting the amphitheater. And in fact, we're working at this point, Ron, you may want to give them a little heads up. We're working on a project with the University of Arkansas School of Architecture to give us some considerations for what might be built there.
Right, that's for the last couple of years, we've worked with the School of Architecture at U of A, and they help and work with us they take their fifth-year students, and the students get to choose projects at the garden to focus on. Last year, I guess it's working on 2 years ago now, the Education Center was the project that they took on, and they gave us kind of like concepts. You had numbers of different things to choose from, and it gave them experience in real life workings, and having us as a client. They did presentations, so this coming fall, we will be looking at and doing an amphitheater, but also they'll be working on, some of them will also work on the visitor center. So we'll get input from those, and so it benefits us, and it also helps the architecture students at the U of A.
The interesting thing about the work that the architecture students did on the education center was they first started with those things that would influence the placement of it. The stream side ordinance, the soil, water flow, all of those sorts of things. Because originally Portico thought that the education center would be somewhere down here. However, you can't build much there because it's real soft and it just wouldn't work there. So they did a substantial amount of study and they suggested moving it back to right about there. The other thing that you'll see, and you may have a question about, is in this plan, does not necessarily show in that plan, but one of the things that we've talked with Connie and the staff about was a key element of education, particularly the work we're doing with Fayetteville and Springdale schools, has to do with access to the water. Because as part of their study, one of the things that they do is take water samples, look at bugs and stuff in the water, and find out what's going on there. So as part of our plan, there will be a boardwalk and a wharf and I'll call it a dock, that's not it, but it'll be a place where a classroom of 20 or 28 kids can get out there and draw their samples from the lake. But what that gives you is, if you look at here, this is roughly 5 times the size of what we currently have when we will be finished. So, I don't want to bore you, but that's pretty much the overview, and that's what we would like you to consider as we move forward and develop. To get to this point, we've been working for the past 2 years to review what we actually have. We've come to the city with a request to make some alterations in the lease because parts of what we have worked out with the city is the part that is referred to as the non-fee area will be returned to the city for their development. We will retain the fee area, and the reason the difference between the two is we charge, the only way that we pay our bills is either by donations, grants, or admissions. And the fee area is where we charge admissions. That's our moneymaker. So what we have is here roughly developing 5 areas. Now, one of the caveats that I've mentioned in other meetings is if some rich person comes to us and says, I have a $5 million check here and I want to develop an amphitheater, even though it's I on the strategic plan, it may move to the top and we may come back to planning and zoning and you all again and say, King's X, we have this opportunity. We won't tell that person, I'm sorry, you've got to wait till 2021 to build the amphitheater because we've got all these other things to build. So this is, and I call it a schematic. This does not intend to represent what will be the final product, but it shows you that it will fit neatly into the current contours of the land and provide an amenity for Northwest Arkansas that will be exceptional. And if any of you have read the recent Walton family study, what people are looking for are amenities, and one of the things that they talked about was a botanical garden, which is what we already got. All right? Questions?
Estimated timeline?
Depends upon how much money people want to give us. And in today's economy, that's a little slow. But we got a 25-year lease and 2 possible extensions of that, so it's going to take a while. It won't be 3 to 5 years. It'll probably be more like 15 to 20. But the first item will be this, followed by the visitor center, and you'll see those things start to develop. And where we have things like a pavilion to support the outdoor recreation, things like that. So, best answer I can give you is
I was just
15 to
going to
20
comment
years.
too that we have A, education center first, but remember, to do A, you have to put down infrastructure, which will also serve future areas. But because you're putting down that infrastructure, the parking lots, all that, it's going to seem like it takes a long time to do A because you're doing more than just education. You're doing all that other stuff that goes along with it. Does that make sense?
So one of the primaries is gonna be,
You've got to do the A and B A at the beginning, but you gotta have, been able to have some parking. We can
So
go a
what
while.
infrastructure are you planning on building as you're doing the education? Because if you're talking about the infrastructure that you're gonna put in, besides just the current parking space.
Well, infrastructure means, you know, your electricity, your water, all that. And we're gonna have,
Water, sewer, street, wet roads.
This street, I mean, if we're expanding that, you're also planning on expanding. I mean, you've got B and then a final E as parking. Are those parkings planned currently along with the educational aspect of it?
They will be added to as we have the money and build them out.
So parking space is not currently in the plan along with this?
But
it's B.
what Ron just said is, you've got, as part of your infrastructure, you've got to have the parking in the roads to get to there. And we'll be putting in the water, sewer, electricity, internet, and everything else to establish the center as we put down the road and the parking lot. And then, of course, we're gonna have to have trees and other landscaping to go around that. And so these will be the first that are built because they're adjacent to what is currently there and to serve the Arboretum and to serve the Educational Center and the Visitor Center. Because one of the things we learned that is expected in outdoor recreation is that we will provide facilities there, and the facilities that he's talking about are concessions, shelter, restrooms. And if we're having an average of 100 people today coming to the restroom now, and figuring that currently, as Matthew mentioned to the Ward 4 meeting the other night, the current traffic on the trail is between 600 a day and 300 a day, or 3,000 a day, depending upon what's going on. If you think about the Greenway being finished, Lake Fayetteville Trail being finished, that traffic is going to go up exponentially. So we can't handle that with the two-holder we currently have.
Well, hi, I'm Chris, and I'm on the planning process of the botanical garden. Part of that parking area, it is designed so that school buses have the access to get in them and the radius to turn, and also the radius, also the area to park the buses waiting for the kids. So that's a very important part, because right now it's very hard for us to get the buses into our current parking and them to turn because of so narrow and it's sloped. So again, part of the process of the education building will definitely be building the parking that will provide the access for the school buses.
Walt, I have a quick question for you. It says on your relevant elements that you'd like to add to the lease, you say that you want to give back, return the non-fee area from the south boundary of the garden, continuing to Veterans Park. Is any of that turn back that you mentioned on this schematic?
I think no, it would be to the...
So moving to the
west.
west. Okay. So how far does it go from here on back, and what would be the reason for doing that?
Veterans Park,
Say again?
almost to Veterans Park.
Yeah, if you go...
All along there, along the water? Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
If you go on the new trail,
Mm-hmm.
and you go down about 7/10 of a mile, there's a sign there that says, "Welcome to the Botanical Garden." It's where the two streams go in, and you have the cove right there on Lake Fayetteville. And we want to retain the cove for a variety of reasons. Mary Beth Mulholland's son, Kelly, is working with the Audubon Society, Fayetteville Natural Heritage, and several others, that they want to put a birding stand down here on the peninsula of the cove, because that was something that Paige and I had talked about before he passed, but we're looking to add features and use that natural landscape down there. So it would go down to approximately where the sign is now. It's where the concrete trail ended before the new one was there.
Okay. And so your proposal would be to take out the current existing
dirt trail that goes along there, along the lake side of the property, and move it to the south border of your current leasehold?
Yes.
Okay. And I assume it would stay in the trees until you hit the parking lot?
It would be this right here. This is the current trail as it goes through, because that's a satellite
The
picture.
paved trail.
The paved trail.
Yep.
And this is where we're suggesting putting the soft trail.
Okay. And were we to do that, how much land would we give up from the dirt trail and replace with hard surface trail? Quarter mile?
Well, the
Yes.
concrete was already installed, so it's more like
You're talking about
7/10 of a mile.
Right.
You're talking about where the soft trail hits the concrete and around the garden?
Yeah, right now it's all dirt, right? If you wanted to go dirt all the way around, you could.
I don't know how
So
long
what-
that is,
so
but it's.
This
So
part-
we'd lose just a quarter mile of dirt. Is that
Steve,
Maybe.
a good guess, or eighth of a mile?
I would say,
it's
I would
from
say
here
3/4 of a mile.
Yeah.
to there.
Oh, really? Okay, 3/4 of a mile?
And it's no different.
Because it's got a lot of curves in it, so
Right.
it's a little longer.
Question?
Yes, John Pennington, I'm the current chair of the Lake Fayetteville Watershed Partnership, and we work with all the stakeholders around the lake, runners, bikers, hikers, birders, boaters, anyone you can think of, frisbee golfers. And I guess one question that I was wanting a little bit more well-defined in my mind, just so that I could communicate with other people effectively, is the existing dirt path, which lots of people seem to use and like, that's on the south side of the lake. And I'm just looking for a very clear statement of that trail will no longer be there, or it will be rerouted, but around some of the infrastructure that is associated with this plan.
I guess the best answer I can give you is, from the day we started building the botanical garden, the message was that the soft trail that goes through the fee area would, at some point when we built out the plan, cease to exist. We have in the working agreement we have with the city a 30-day notice that when we're ready to build this, which will be sitting right across or astride the soft trail, there's a 30-day notice that the city will indicate that that trail is closed. And so what you're going to have is, whether it's a half mile or 3/4 of a mile, the soft trail is here on the other side of the garden, it's here, and...
That trail no longer exists.
Pardon?
That trail no longer exists.
This one would no longer exist.
No, that trail that you're pointing to up there no longer exists.
Okay. There were people riding on it yesterday when I was at the garden, so I thought it existed.
The one to the north, track that goes up over the hill, or used to go up over the hill?
That no longer
It's
exists.
been rerouted.
Okay.
I guess the other point I guess I would like to know a little bit more about is the original designation of the park itself and what it was supposed to serve, and if some of these proposed components of the plan will counter some of the original creation purpose behind the park itself.
But behind the whole park? Okay. I think it was around 1970-something, our 3 lakes were purchased actually as a second water source for the city of Fayetteville. Lake Fayetteville, Lake Sequoia, and Lake Wilson. And when they decided that Lake Fayetteville, they were going to go to the Beaver Water District, then Lake Fayetteville would no longer need to be in that. It's still a second source. If something would happen ever to Beaver Water District, Lake Fayetteville would be the first probably lake that would be put into existence. So it's still owned by Water and Sewer. They purchased it, man-made lake, and they gave the responsibility over to the city Parks and Recreation Department. And that's how we got it back. I can research that and get a year on that. And at first it was basically, we put ball fields out there. It was ball fields, then Veterans Memorial Park was already there. The trails started coming in. We had many volunteers help to build the soft surface trails through it. And I can't remember what year was it, 1972, 78, I think. Yeah, the study center. 74, 1974, the city went into a long-term agreement with, in fact, there's no year on it, that 200 acres would be preserved for environmental study center for both the Fayetteville public school system and the Springdale public school system. So that's how that came intact. And then it just kind of, from there, Botanical Gardens came, we had several offers, different people wanting to do things there for life. The Botanical Gardens was approved, the disc golf course came along, I mean, things, just a hard surface trail came into existence. The disc golf course was major, came in as an additive to it. So it just has evolved into a great recreational area. So that kind of gives you a background.
For the detailed explanation, I was actually kind of missing out on some of that, so I was hoping to learn it. Thanks for explaining that to me. Appreciate it.
I saw some other questions.
Yeah, maybe a minor point. I'm Luana Banning. I run the Springdale program for Lake Fayetteville Environmental Studies Center. But just for accuracy's sake, to clarify the comparison of the student population of the two centers, their Botanical Gardens takes about 20 to 22 of our elementary students. We have 5th grade and 10th grade. So that's about 20 of Springdale's 90 classes, 90 days, and then Fayetteville also has 90 days. So we're serving quite a few there. And I had another question on A, C, and D. Are those on that presentation, are they to scale?
No.
Okay, so do we have any idea on dimensions on those buildings?
Well, we won't till, a lot of that will be driven by the funds raised, to be real honest. I mean,
So you don't have an idea of how many students you'd be serving in the center yet? Okay. And I noticed the fence, that goes from water back to water?
Yes.
Okay, and that's going to be, I guess, wildlife exclusion area. It's going to keep wildlife in or out.
We're trying to keep
Kinda hard
wildlife
to-
out.
Yeah. Well, like for example, the deer are running, or go through there all the time. There's a lot of important deer habitat there, and I'm wondering what will happen to the deer routes. Of course, they'll have to make new routes, and I'm concerned about what that will do with the highway there. If that might endanger drivers on the highway, if you're going to completely change the wildlife travel.
I don't have an answer for that.
because it's almost like you need to say, we either have a garden or we're gonna have the wildlife, because the deer are kind of detrimental to what is grown in the garden. But I would tell you, to give you an example of January a year ago, we planted 10,000 tulip bulbs. There were less
I love
than
tulips.
2,000 that were not eaten by the deer.
How many acres are enclosed in a fence compared to how many wooded acres are in the park?
Oh, well, in the whole area currently, and you have the lease there, Freeman, but it's about 96, right?
Your lease right now, yes.
Right now.
So it'd be about 96 acres
But,
inside the
but
fence?
what you're seeing
We're
up here,
about to give half of
Probably.
that back.
it's less than half.
40 acres or so,
Yeah,
maybe?
about 40.
I'm just wondering, if we do, how many wooded acres are in the park?
I don't know, the whole area with the lake and everything is like 500 or 600 acres, but that includes the lake.
That includes the 200-acre lake and then the prairie and the field
Yes.
and parking, ball fields, marina. Okay.
Yeah.
Other questions?
I could look at it on an aerial.
So the parking, you've got something about maintaining the parking adjacent, exclusive to its visitors and its patrons. So that goes against the lease as far as you're now gonna say, this is only for PGO?
Yes. We're trying to change the lease. It doesn't go against the lease. We're asking for that as a change. Here's the situation. This parking lot has 47 slots. Those are for paid customers. I'll remind you of what I just said, and that is the only way that we're able to operate the gardens is we get no city money, we get no state money, is either through donations or through admissions or grants, all right? If our guests, who are more my age than yours, have to park in the meadow and walk across the bridge, they're unlikely to come to the garden, all right? What we're asking in our request to change the lease is that the trailhead be moved over to the meadow, which is as good a place to mount your bike or take your dogs for a walk as it is parking in that parking lot. That's a matter of negotiations. We have asked for that because we're at a point now where with 76,000 visitors, 47 spots will meet our need. There is no space. That's the reason buses have got to park over in the meadow. They can no longer use what were supposed to be the bus spots because those are filled. You go there 6 o'clock in the morning, our parking lot is full with people using the trail. And what we're saying is, if we're to be successful as a business, we need to have a place where our customers, our paying customers, can park. We're not trying to get out of what was in the original lease, but I remind you that when the original lease was there, no one had ever built or tried to run a successful botanical garden. We're saying we'd like the trailhead users, which will only increase, to use the larger space over in the meadow so that we can use the parking lot for our paying guests.
So, and you're gonna leave it in its current status as it is currently and just have people park there? You're not gonna do anything additional to that space at this point?
You mean in the meadow? Not at this point.
The reason why I asked is because I drove by Saturday during farmer's market and it was complete mess from people driving across the field. And then now you weren't even utilizing the established parking, you were now moving further across. So you had everybody driving across the paved system for parking because the current provided parking is not adequate.
Part of that has to do with the, where they just laid the water lines. It's kind of like a sinkhole.
But there's not gravel or anything else out there as would be the normal parking for that type of parking.
And that may be a change that we have to make as we go through this process. But, you know, the reality is that that area that you're just describing has gone through a tremendous, they dug a what, 40-foot hole there and excavated that whole area. So it is not what it has been since the garden opened.
Mr. Atlas, I just want to ask you a quick question. You said that the city does not give any money to the botanical gardens.
Not for our operations.
Not for the operations. And I was under the impression that the lease was free, and that we did give you about $750,000 to get started. How many years ago was that?
2005.
2005. So I mean, you said that you weren't taking any money from the city. However, we're giving you the land. The city gives you the land, which is the city's land, and then also the $750,000. So you're not.
And we got money from the A&P Commission, and the city and the A&P Commission are recognized as garden founders as the people who helped us raise that initial $5.5 million. My point was that we get no operating money from the city of Fayetteville.
Okay. No, and I didn't mean to be rude. I think what you guys do is great. I just wanted to clarify that you are getting the land for free.
Yes.
That, you know, it is the city's land that you're operating on for free.
Correct.
So
And that's the nature of the public-private partnership that was developed at that time.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, seeing what is there at this point in 5 years, with volunteers raising $5.5 million, that public-private partnership is working. All right? And what the city has is an amenity that people are now coming through to from foreign countries and all across the United States to visit.
Yeah.
So the lease is a trade-out, our sweat equity for the city's space.
And John, one of the provisions that our city attorney at that time put in, because we were allowed them to utilize that land either free, without a lease, was to allow the public to have free admission on Saturday morning. And that was one of them, and to be able to use that parking lot.
Is
That
that
was the
still
deal.
continue?
That not only continues, but has been expanded substantially. The public is welcome to the garden for all of our concerts, which we give free a year. Each year, I pass out about 2,500 free passes to the garden to lifestyles. The basic deal I've worked out with Mayor Jordan is we look at the people who could not afford to pay $7 to come to the garden, and we give them to city council members, we give them to Parks and Rec, 250 or 300, and we give out 2,500 free passes for people who might not be able to afford to come to the garden, to be able to come at any time, not just Saturday morning, but whenever it's convenient to them. Because the complaint that many folks have raised is Saturday morning is family time, it's when we're busy. So we not only meet the current standard, but we exceed it significantly.
So the 9 to 12 is still,
Yeah.
is still
Anyone who
established?
shows up and wants to come into the garden.
It's residents of Fayetteville, is what
Right.
it says.
The garden is not open for free because if you remember, Saturdays are a heavy traffic day for football games, basketball games, and people coming to Fayetteville. So don't get the impression that the garden is open for free to everyone who walks up to the gate.
So that's, Saturday is our biggest, is one of the bigger days for tours too, so that's why, that's going to give a lot of out-of-town visitors.
I just called today and I was told it wasn't open, that that program had been stopped. Just,
And I wonder who you talk to. Ron, I think you have a problem.
So,
I just made one call.
Walt, I'll give you my opinion on your design and what I think we need to balance here. I think that I have a concern that the constituents of the city of Fayetteville that want a soft trail through this area and want to be able to stay in the woods would not like being locked out of that portion. I think that you guys, within your current design, have the opportunity to still fence off your property and maintain that current trail system. Still have access to the lake when you need it via gates, and still allow people to use the soft trail that goes around the edge of the property. I think there's room for compromise for not only the botanical gardens, but all the folks that want to use those trails. And I have a concern that we would be forcing the ever expanding deer population out onto a new 4-lane highway. I really do think there's a compromise that can be put in place here that'll allow both of us to win, allow you guys to fulfill your master plan, and allow us to still have access to the soft trail. That's just my opinion.
Let me ask a question.
Sure.
With that as a compromise, how do we pay for the additional fencing that will have to go all the way through the 40 acres of the garden? Because you can't keep deer out with a fence on only one side. We've already learned that.
Yep. And again, I think we can figure out a way to reach a compromise. If it's that important to the folks of Fayetteville, I think they would come to the table and give you some more money for fencing. If it's that important to keep that trail open, I think that's something you should ask the city to do or help with.
Okay.
That's just my opinion as a member of the board and a person that's been here a long time. Okay. What exactly are we seeking to do tonight?
Tonight was just to give a presentation to allow our Parks Board to be able to ask questions, or in any public meeting.
Sure.
Anybody here to answer meetings. And then we would like to set a public meeting, as we do with all of our park master plans. We go through a public process. And this will allow time if people have concerns or requests or want to come for the public meeting. And then we need to set the public meeting tonight. And then hopefully we'll be ready to take it back to our Parks Board at the May 6th meeting.
Okay.
And Steve, we've suggested the garden is available the 16th, 22nd, and the 24th. And our request is that that the hearing not be done in a vacuum, but that the folks who want to come and talk about the garden are actually there so they can see it in context.
Okay.
And that's very well how we do it. Many times we'll go to the site. Carol knows.
Okay, before we set a date, is there any other discussion? There's a lot of folks here. Is there anybody else that would like to have input while we're here?
Well, if I may, one thing is I hope you will arrange at a time, Aubrey Shepherd, arrange a time when government channel can cover it. I've been the guy complaining sometimes when you have to go somewhere you can't get them to cover it.
Duly noted.
Thank you.
You bet. Okay, why don't we go ahead and try and set a date? 16th, 22nd, or 24th has been suggested. Any dates that are better for others? I certainly cannot make the 16th, I'm out of town. So 22nd or 24th is best for me, but I don't
I'm
necessarily have to be
presuming that
there.
it would be in the evening at 5:30, is that?
Something like that.
Is that a good time? That's usually a good time for people to come after work.
The garden closes at 5, so
Okay.
we'd be available.
So 5:30.
And maybe we could, if you all wouldn't mind, have the master plan posted there if people would like to come by and look at it or have any comments before and can't attend the meeting, maybe we could have a sheet of paper there that they could write their comments on if they have it.
So the 22nd is a Monday and the 24th is a Wednesday. Any days of the week work better than others for folks?
Monday.
For you guys? Monday for Terry?
I'm on call Monday.
Okay. Monday or Wednesday? Flexible? Philip, anything?
I'm flexible.
Okay.
You said the other day was the 16th?
16th, 22nd, or 24th. 16th is a Tuesday. We tried to pick dates where another main resource for the garden is to rent the garden for weddings and meetings, and those are dates where we don't already have it promised to someone else.
Okay. 24th is a Wednesday. Would that work for everybody?
Is the farmer's market already opening on that day?
No.
Okay, I couldn't remember that.
Okay, good call. Let's go ahead and set for the 24th in the evening at 5:30. Does that sound good?
Sounds fine.
Okay. Super. Well, Walt and everybody, thank you for your diligence and thank you for bringing us the details. I think everybody is interested to see how this develops. I think the plan you've got is phenomenal. The funding is always the key, right?
That's the kicker.
But it looks really good.
Well, I think as we go through the process, funding will be much more reasonable because the output, the outcome that comes from what we're trying to do will be significant. If you think with what we have now, we're having a $3.1 million economic impact. Imagine what it would be when we have the full area developed, including the amphitheater. And no, the amphitheater won't become the new AM.
It's small like Gully Parks.
That isn't our purpose. But I would make the offer to you as board members that if you would like to come for a tour so you can get a sense of the garden and its scope, we'll be glad to arrange that. Either Ron or I will be glad to take you out around the garden and show you what exists, but what this really means, because there's a big difference between seeing it on that schematic and having to walk through the woods and see what is actually there and what we're going to be developing.
Okay, super. Well, thank you, everyone. Appreciate your time.
Thank you for your hard work. Board, thank you all. Appreciate
Did
it.
everybody sign the sign-in sheet?
Everybody sign in?
Oh, we're not done yet.
No, we're not. Hey, back up here.
7 o'clock down home. They know
I
I'm.
will for you. How about that?
All right.
What do you need, Aubrey?
Okay, let's see. Top here.
We've got one other item. Hey, y'all, we're gonna continue our meeting, if y'all don't mind, I'm sorry. Cameras are rolling. Thank you all for coming.
Okay, let's see, we have other business, we had one other thing that we wanted to add, is that correct? And that
Yes.
was a discussion on parking at the dog park. Is that
Parking
correct?
for the dog park.
Okay,
You want me to just talk about it?
Go ahead.
They, someone brought to my attention that the dog park, the popularity has caused their street on Saturdays to become a parking lot. That they can't get out of their driveway, they can't get their mail, their kids can't go playing outside. It's on Yale Street, it's an issue. Parks has built a parking lot at Davis Park that they should be using, they're not using it. They're still using Yale, it's a little closer, it's the little access point
It's
there.
a cul-de-sac, is that correct?
It is a cul-de-sac, yeah. And so, so it was just told to me that that's a big issue for the people on that street, and if they have to go the route of petitions and uproar, they're more than happy to do that. Apparently, they're very upset about it, but I don't really know that it's on us to do anything. That
Well,
might be a
I
city
can tell
issue.
you what I found out. I do know that our parking lot, when we built it, it was the number, the right size that we were supposed to build it. Of course, you never know the popularity of anything, and the dog park has certainly been very popular. But Yale is a public street, and we've been told by the traffic department that people are allowed to park on a public street, that they cannot block a driveway, so that neighborhood can prohibit them from parking in their driveway. They can call, someone to tow them, or call the police department to come give them a ticket. We never did actually find out about blocking a mailbox, if that was okay or not okay to do. I know there's a couple of.
I think that'll go away when Saturday mail stops coming, so.
Yeah, that's true. That's a good point. But anyhow, as far as giving tickets in an area, it is a public street, and it is allowed to be parked on. Now, we do hope that to the north of Bryce Davis, the new Bryce Davis, there's going to be, as that develops onto the north of there, that there will be a road that will go through, and we'll have some parallel parking, which provides 8, 9, or 10, something like that.
Yeah, something like that.
Not a lot, but a few more.
A few more
parking areas there to enter from the north.
Got a question for you, Connie. Do you know what the width of that street is?
No.
It's just a standard residential street.
Are they allowing parking on both sides of that street?
Yes.
I think so.
Then you could petition
That's a good point.
the street committee, the street department, for parking on one side or the other. In other words, not allow parking on both sides. I'm assuming that's probably a 26-foot street, and it has to have a 20-foot street clearance. So, in effect, you can only park on one side or the other.
That was like built in 1984, 1985, so.
It's a standard residential street.
But you still gotta get a fire truck too, right?
It's
Yeah.
exactly right. So if it's 26 foot, then you can park on one side or the other, but you cannot park on both sides. So the neighborhood could petition the city to put up no parking on one side or the other.
So you're gonna have one half of the neighborhood.
now we're gonna divide the board.
Yeah, let me tell you how to figure that one out. Is whichever side of the street the fire hydrant is on, that's the side of the street you don't park on.
That you don't, yeah, that's a good point.
But that's the neighborhood that would need to petition
You
that,
could do
correct?
that too, on their behalf. Sure.
I wonder if we could do something as simple as some educational signs.
Well, that's one.
That say, parking for Imes Dog Park is located at Bryce Davis
I think those
over here.
I think we have those in place.
We have them already?
Yeah,
Okay.
We've done that.
So
We've
much
done
for-
step A.
Gosh, I'm behind a little bit, sorry. Dang it.
Still a good idea.
The problem is it's
See how fast that was? They already
further to
implemented it.
walk
Right.
from the parking lot than it is from.
Yeah.
the
If you want to
ADA.
get extra exercise or anything like that.
Yeah, you
Going to the dog park
I
to
would hate
exercise
for your
the
dog.
dog, not
You
me.
know,
That's right.
we have this problem quite often, popular complexes, baseball complexes, or softball, or even soccer. And, you know, if the neighborhood would want to put little notes out saying, please don't park here, I mean, they could. Now, I know when we had problems at Lewis soccer fields, we as staff went out several times and would put notes on people's cars that, hey, there's parking over at Asbell School and across the street that is open, except for Wednesday and Sunday nights. You know, please utilize our parking. And it did kind of help, you know, finally, finally move some over, but people park the closest and just anywhere they can squeeze in. I know it is.
Well,
I'm glad ours is so popular.
apparently some of the neighborhood people have reached out to you or to the parks,
Yeah.
and we have their contact information. So
Okay.
if you just want to let them know that what Terry said, I'm sure that would be sufficient.
I know Allison has visited with the traffic department, but I don't know the real specifics. She'll be back tomorrow.
But their beef's not with us, it's the traffic department, right?
Well-
I doubted that, I just seriously doubted that we were gonna be able to do anything, it being a neighborhood street. There's nothing wrong with the dog park, other than they want more bags and trash cans.
Yeah.
But they were in a rant, so they were just.
I would think though, if you were able to petition the city and get some no parking on one side, that would at least help folks get in and out of their neighborhood. Still not gonna like having cars on one side in front of your house all day long on Saturday, but at least you know you're gonna have some access in and out. I think that's where I would have them start.
Yeah.
If the neighborhood wants it, that's one way they can get it.
Yep.
So is the other parking lot full?
No, no one's parking.
No one parks there at all?
No one parks there.
See,
Are very
but
few.
I've heard people say it is full. So I think it's when you go. You know, probably on Saturday and evenings it might be. I don't know.
There hasn't been a nice Saturday since I heard about it for me to go over.
Yeah.
So I haven't seen it yet, but apparently, I mean, it's world ending, it's a big deal.
It's nice to know the dog park's being used. That's good.
Oh, yeah.
I've never seen cars during the day, but that's during the workday, you know,
Yeah.
so I don't know about the evenings and weekends.
Okay. Any other discussion topics before I read off upcoming events? Nope.
Oh, can we get an update on the softball stuff? Did we already get one and I missed it, or?
No, we didn't really
Nothing.
have any earth-shattering news. I mean, we just proceeded with our league and they proceeded with theirs, and so we currently have, I think, about 315 or 320 or so.
How many did you have last year?
We had 460 last year.
460. So you lost a quarter or more of them.
And that was one thing, we did meet with the athletic director, Barry Giphart, staff. We met with him and only him, and he did say, yeah, I should have visited with you all before starting that, I apologize. And he did say that Coach Shirey, he would visit with him to see if maybe he could give us some coaching clinic time, because that was one thing that they wanted. They wanted to have more hands-on with these leagues. And I think the thing that we kind of went back and forth was, you know, hey, you know, if you want to offer it for certain age groups, let us know. We'll let you guys offer that, and we'll offer the other. Our scare is how many teams will we have in each league. You know, if you only have 2 or 3 teams, that's not going to be a lot of fun for those kids to play them on and, you know, again and again. And their league, we had heard it was supposed to be a draft, but then we heard of teams, they've been calling some of our teams, and have told them from last year and have asked them to come and told them that they could come as a team. So there's no way that our league will be able to play their league because they have all the ringers on their teams. So, you know, it's just has kind of made an unfortunate, you know.
I don't understand how that has worked out as far as with the school system. How they're using public property, but asking to be paid to run that thing?
We were told that a booster club, the booster club, since the league's being run by the booster club, and all the money that they generate from the league, that's what we were told, is being going directly back into the program.
So it goes back into the school
And so
system.
they are given access to the fields because all the revenue that's being generated. It's the same thing as if the booster club came out and did a bake sale at the high school field, is the way they're looking at it. So, but our suggestion is just that we said, let's, how about, we talk about next year coming into this, you guys running a 9 to 15-year-old league or a 10 to 15-year-old league that provides a more competitive experience. And then, we have you under 6, under 8, under 10, and then we provide sort of a rec experience for the girls that are 10 to 15. Because that's where the need is, and that's what they can provide that we can't provide, because they have access to, more things than we do in terms of that side of things. So,
And what was his response to that request?
No one was opposed. I mean, whenever you present it, it's so logical that everyone goes, yeah. So, I mean, when we met with our board, we talked with our youth softball board, we talked about the same thing. I mean, I think that's a long-term solution in the sense that those entities already exist in other sports. I mean, you have the Commons for soccer, you have AAU for basketball, you have competitive travel volleyball. So, rather than have a 6-year-old have to pick whether they want to be in a rec or competitive league, which is, absurd if you're, let's wait, and then when a kid's 10 and they're like, I'm a little bit bored with this rec league now, hey, well, guess what? There's another opportunity. And like I said, those models are already in place in all of our other youth sports. So that's really, and if their goal is to improve the quality of those players that are coming into the high school, then that's a perfectly logical solution too, because it makes even more sense, because they can play a heavy role in that and sort of organize it the way they want, and even, train coaches to teach a certain way, whatever it is their philosophy is and their approach is. So that's our suggestion, and that's our hope going
I think
forward.
it's a great suggestion. I think the entities in soccer and other folks that run these types of programs, the difference for me is that it's not being run by the school, or it's not being supported by the school.
Yeah, right.
It's maybe funded by fees and funneled through the booster club back to the school, but the Commons isn't being funded by the school.
Yep.
Right? And they're not using Fayetteville Public Schools fields to practice. So I don't think they're apples to apples comparisons in my opinion, but I do think that if they want to establish a club, a travel club or a more skilled club, I think that's a great thing to do. I think it's a great thing to do for kids that are older. But I do think that having it span that many age groups could be detrimental to young girls that want to play softball.
Yep.
And that frustrates me a little bit. So.
Well, we just want things to be convenient for our citizens and to offer the best programs possible. And with us splitting kind of the leagues, I think it's detrimental to both of them. And it just seems like we all have the goal in mind. We're very recreational minded. We want every child to learn to play and to have like sports that they like to play and that will continue to play, just to be active and to have fun at it. And we do want to train good coaches, and if we can have some help from their coach, if they want the older ones particularly trained a certain way, we're apt to have it. I think there was some misconceptions for some reason. They had he had told us that he had heard that the city was going to help upgrade the Lady Bulldog field. And it was like, oh, really? Not really to our mind. We've never had heard it before. So I don't know who that was shared with, but it certainly wasn't with Parks and Recreation.
That was the AD.
The AD, yeah. And of course, for us to put money into that, we would have to use it for a city entity. So that didn't happen, and we did. They have allowed us all these years. We built those 2 fields there. We built the parking lots there. We even put the playground in. Then we put in the soccer fields, and we gave up the big field. And one day we went out there, and our concession stand and restrooms were totally demolished. So, I think communication somehow has been lacking between, you know, who owns the land and who's leasing it and all.
A
But
few
now
months
we're all.
later, there was a black wrought iron fence all the way around the property one day we went out there. Versus at Asbel.
Which
So
is,
this was-
which is school property. So we, in.
But we had a lease on it at that point, so.
Yeah, we had a lease that we're,
Yeah.
a 1 year.
Leasing your house when they were going on vacation, you wouldn't
Maybe they'd like to buy a parking lot.
I'll show all the rooms in it when they get back from vacation. Well, it's an outfit.
Yeah,
It
but,
sounds like we need to talk a little bit more amongst
Yes.
ourselves.
yes, and they agreed to, so that's what we're doing. We've got another meeting set up, coming up soon.
Okay.
Thank you all.
Super. Well, upcoming events, we've got April 1st, that's today. Adult softball spring season begins.
Kicking off.
All right. April 4th, first Thursday, Fayetteville, down on the square. April 4th, also Kid Crops Gardening Program begins at the Yvonne Richardson Community Center. April 6th, opening day of the Farmers Market. Maybe it won't rain, maybe it'll be warm. That'd be nice.
Big first time.
Yeah. April 15th, beginning of youth softball practices. April 21st, annual Earth Day celebration will be held at the World Peace Wetland Prairie located at 1125 Duncan from 1 to 5. That's just south of Martin Luther King on Duncan. May 18th, Kids to Parks Day, opening of Lake Fayetteville, hard and soft surface trails and the floating spiral wetland at Lake Fayetteville. Event includes disc golf, kayaking, sand volleyball, and more. So we're going to proceed with the floating wetland.
Yeah.
That's part of the artosphere, and that's another thing
Right.
we failed to put on there is the Trail Mix concert series will be May the 4th on Frisco Trail from 10 to noon, I think, in Fayetteville.
The other thing we want to get recognition is to Progressive Trails. They donated $25,000 more or less in their labor and machinery to build the soft surface trail on the south side, which is phenomenal.
Awesome, that's great.
And we've got Boy Scouts that are working on the trail on the north side. So that's, Lake Fayetteville's hopping.
Eagle Scouts are good labor.
Yes,
Cheap.
they are.
Actually, they're Life Scouts. That's where they get the payoff. Anything else? Might I propose that we adjourn? How's that sound?
Thanks, Steve.
Thank you.